As someone said backstage, hard act to follow. And in the words of Monty Python, and now for something completely different. I am Matt Kaplan, and this has become the traditional end of the Humans to Mars Summit. We've been doing it, I don't know, for the last 5 or 6 years, something like that. Now you can see quite a crowd, quite a distinguished crowd joining me on stage. Actually, the nature of this, if it works well, if it was practical, we would bring all of you here on the stage. Wade wants us to come down stage a little bit. Everybody come on up here. So I will encourage you, because we will try to get to audience questions and participation as quickly as possible. And if you have the program, you've seen, I'll read the whole thing, Public Pathways to Mars in the 2030s, the key word there being public, how you can help shape the journey. That's the message that I've asked everybody here to do a 1-minute, roughly 60-second response about how we're going to bring more people into this thing that I suspect we all believe in, that we should become an interplanetary species, at least in terms of exploration of our solar system. And so, to give you actually, you know what? I'll introduce them as they begin to speak, and we'll go right down the line, just as they are in the program. Very brief introductions, because if you've been around for the last 2 days, you've already met everybody on this stage. So, Melodie, you are in the fortunate position of being the first, and then I'll wrap it up. But your 60 seconds on how we bring people into this. Melodie, of course, of ICON, Vice President for, Building Design and Performance, building these works of art that happen to also be places that you could live on Mars or on a third world nation back here on Earth. Melodie.
Thank you. Oh, that's right, I mic'd
You
it.
got it.
I was looking at your microphone and I was about to grab it. Hi, everybody. I'm going to be very brief, but I have 3 answers for you. The first is promoting education, and as part of promoting education, promoting storytelling for why we should go to Mars, what it will be like on a Mars mission, the challenges we face, so that younger generations have a sense of what's coming, how they can apply themselves, and where they can go in their careers and also in their kind of everyday, kind of leisurely activities. Think about what this means and what the challenge is. The next is exploring and promoting what I refer to as dual-use technology development initiatives. So these are applications for space technology development which bring back value to Earth in the short term. ICON Technologies, which I'm part of currently, is a company that was really founded based off of this principle. We are looking for near-term solutions to resolve the housing crisis on Earth, and in the long term introduce mechanisms and also construction technologies that can support the creation of roadways, habitats, landing pads, and eventually pressurized human habitats on Mars. So getting folks to think about dual-use technology development is extremely important. And then my last point, thinking about how we can create new avenues for public, private, and also private partnerships, generally speaking, so that we're not creating redundant solutions for technologies that need to be created, and hopefully we can leverage the work of others that's already happened.
Thank you, Melodie. Great start. Scarlett Hartzman, who you heard earlier today with that terrific address, future Martian perhaps, but certainly future, sounds like a terrific Mars scientist. Mm-hmm. Scarlett.
Yeah, so I think definitely what you were saying with getting education out to the younger generation like myself, having people with this in the Mars generation, getting involved in different science fairs, different competitions. I think competition is one of the best motivators, and it's the best way to get the word out and to get people really excited about getting to Mars. And I think another way in which I'm trying to help with getting paths on Mars is what I'm actually doing this summer with Dr. Pascal Lee, where I'm mapping out different routes on Mars, where I'll be kind of evaluating different terrain and slopes and elevation to determine the best pathways around a certain area on Mars to help future Martians, get around and explore what Mars has to offer.
Let me ask you, when you started a rocketry club at your school, did that pull people in and get them interested in this stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think it was so much fun getting people together in one room. We all had our little kits, and I even worked at a summer camp over the summer, that summer after I started it, and I was able to help a lot of these even younger students get involved and get excited about rockets.
Excellent. I'm going to go to your twin sister standing next to you there. Tiffany Vora, Vice President for Innovation Partnerships here with Explore Mars and so much more, Singularity University among them. Tiffany, it's your turn.
I love that you think we look like sisters. That's such a compliment. My call to action to all of you is to lean into and leverage this amazing Explore Mars community. If you are an innovator, bring your solution to the community. If you know a problem, bring your problem to the community. If you're a parent, bring your kids to the community. If you're a teacher, bring your students. People is what's going to make the future happen. And I think we've heard multiple times over the last 2 days the importance of making decisions today. Those are going to ripple forward, not just for years and decades, but generations. And so being as inclusive as possible, and remember that we're all people and we have relationships with each other, that's how we build the best possible futures together.
Well said, as always. Jim Green, I like Chief Scientist Emeritus better than Chief Scientist Retired at NASA,
right.
but much more than that. It's your turn.
All right, thank you. So I ran a podcast when I was in NASA called Gravity Assist. And at the end of that, I would always ask the person I was interviewing, what was the person, place, or thing that got them inspired? What was their gravity assist? And they knew exactly what it was. It was a teacher. It was an event. It was an activity. It was something inspirational. Space is inspirational. But what's happening in the world right now is that space is becoming more common for those countries to talk about, to those countries to get involved in. When I started at the University of Iowa, there was only a couple space agencies. The United States, USSR, and only a few more. There are now 77 countries with space agencies. And if you go and you talk to those people about space, what they want to do in their space agency is hire within. They don't want to hire foreigners to come in and do space, all right? And so their local population is largely ignorant about what space is doing for them right now and what they should be thinking ahead, because truly those countries are getting the idea that we're not going to survive as a species, let alone as a world, without leveraging and using space. So there's a huge educational push that we've got to be able to do internationally. And for that Mars generation, you got to go where they are. So there are a couple groups, and I'll mention one of them. That's the Metavisionaries that are teaching a whole series of classes in space in the metaverse. You put on a virtual reality system. You log in with a secret code, and you walk into an orbiting spacecraft that's orbiting the Earth or Mars. You talk to teachers that are top scientists in the world that you'd never have an opportunity to do otherwise. And then you beam down to the moon, or you beam down to Mars. That's inspirational. Those are the kind of things that we've got to be doing to help educate the rest of the world and bring them all along with us as NASA becomes more open about what it's doing and the fantastic things that it does. Bring the rest of the world with us.
And I would think that, particularly using the example of the UAE, who we heard from today, that is a great example of using the power of space exploration, space science, to inspire young people and bring them along on the ride.
That's right. That's right. Now, UAE has a planetary scientist. She was trained in the United States. They need and they know that their schools have got to start bringing more aerospace educational activities into their curriculum. And so the rest of those countries, the other 50 countries that have space agencies that haven't done that yet, have got to get started. We've got to be able to help them somehow.
Hunter Stanchak, founder of Thrive on Mars, getting people enthusiastic and involved seems to be kind of your mission.
Absolutely. My answer is definitely gaming. The reason is there's 3 billion gamers worldwide. That's where the world is now, and that's where people spend their time. There's so many digital worlds, and like I was talking about earlier, the overlap between real-world impact and the fantasy worlds is not very well overlapped right now. And so if we can get more of that together, we can get potentially these billions of people interested in space. And that also lowers the barrier of entry because aerospace is complicated. The space industry is naturally very technical. And although some gamers are extremely technical and it's incredible to see, a lot of people just want an easy entry into it. And once we give them that easy entry, they really start diving a little bit deeper. So I think gaming is a really good way for us to inspire people, broaden the message right now. And it's also important for it to be positive because it is true that movies like The Martian are really popular, but again, it's subconsciously communicating that Mars is maybe a place you don't want to go. And I think more positivity in entertainment, education, and gaming is also really important for us to make sure that it's well received and something that people aspire to do.
I knew we had a great group. Before we go on to you, Florence, I want to mention to all of you panelists, if something that someone else says lights a fire under you, please jump in once we finish going down the line. And for the rest of you, you can start lining up at the microphone because, as I said, we're going to try and get to your input on this topic as well as soon as possible. Florence Pouya, former captain of the Afghan robotics team and soon to be part of the student body at MIT, your dream school. What's your addition to this message?
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and it's my absolute pleasure to be a part of this great conference. So I came from a country that women and girls deprived from their very basic right, which is education. Since 2021, when Taliban took over the country, they banned all the schools and universities for girls. So now, girls in my country, they cannot go to schools. As a person who worked in STEM and technology now for 6 years, it's my duty to be an example and a role model for all the other girls back in my country. I want to try my best to be the voice of them in international platform and show other people around the world that if Afghan girls be given the opportunity, they can be among the astronauts that can travel to Mars one day. And it's very obvious that if they don't have right to go to school, how they can pursue their dreams. Now they're all in their house, waiting for a better future, but who knows what will happen. If world leaders, if people who are present today here, if they don't help Afghan girls, if they do not give them the opportunity, it can be anything. For example, if they can provide them with a scholarship, it's a great help. So one day they can also pursue their dreams, and they can also be part of the development of Afghanistan.
Please, that is so well deserved. Probably the most affecting message we will hear as part of this panel and maybe across the 2 days. Thank you, Florence. Daniel Tompkins, a founder of GrowMars, agricultural scientist. You want to get people interested by making Mars a gourmet destination.
Yes, thank you. I came in very much a skeptic, very accidental space company founder, if you will. And I've seen, the need to, build, instead of diluting out, to really build and aggregate groups together. So that's something that I've really dedicated my year to, is really aggregating and getting people with similar goals together to solve some of these challenges of food and agricultural systems in space. I was fortunate enough to be accepted into a fellowship with the Open Lunar Foundation, and at the beginning of that, they said, "You're here for the letter I. It's not inventor, it's not innovator, it's to imagine new possibilities for the future." And that's very much what this is see yourself in the future. I always flash to that, and it's like, this is now. We have to do these things now. There's a lot of present opportunity and a lot of potential. We just have to kind of be the adults in the room and paint the picture big and imagine big, beyond the moon, beyond Mars. Really look our place in time and in technology. And if there's anything that inspires me more, it's biology. It's, look at all the places where how life works and all the extreme environments it's in. And, okay, these are model systems. We can pull from these. It's not that hard. We just have to try, I think, to both stay in space and stay on Earth. Is where can we stay on Earth so we don't have to move? Migration is a huge issue. Going kind of into the post-oil world, if you will. And a lot of these space technologies are very similar. They have a lot of crossover with the Sustainable Development Goals: clean air, food, water, building materials, habitat. I mean, who wouldn't want some of these dream systems that we're going to need if we go to space, or if we never go to space? We're going to need these same systems in 50 years, 100 years. So really broadening it out and then also pulling it together is my kind of yearly mission. So.
This is the future I had in mind when I was 10, 12, 15. With apologies to Walt Disney, all Imagineers up here and out there among the rest of you as well. Please, if you want to add your thoughts, how do we bring more people into this? How do we share the dream? How do we share what we imagine our proper future is? I invite you to come on up to the microphone and be part of this. While we wait for that to happen, if it happens, it's not required. Melodie, I want to come back to you because, if you'll pardon the expression, spin-offs, always something that NASA has been awfully good at, and they still publish the spin-off journal, is that what it's called, Jim, every year, encouraging these kinds of things. I think of those homes that you guys are building with the most amazing 3D printers, which are as big as a house because they're building houses, and that this is happening in places that are hurting for housing. And this is a part of, I think it's a brilliant example of how these technologies that we're talking about are already benefiting people on Earth.
Yes, that's exactly right. So some examples of work that we've done: we've delivered nearly 20 homes in a community referred to as Community First Village for formerly homeless individuals. We've delivered replacement housing on the Gulf Coast of Texas for homes that were destroyed in Hurricane Harvey. FEMA promised replacement housing for those homes and never delivered. We were fortunate to be accepted as part of a resilient housing program that was able to replace those homes for families. And we're going to continue working with communities of need. And the technology in particular is well suited to introduce growth where the finances just don't allow for the kind of demand that's needed to actually house people in these areas. So we're introducing automated technology as a way of introducing a higher performing structure that's more resilient, that can withstand weather and environmental disasters that are becoming more and more frequent as time goes on. And it's true that it's this same system, this very highly resilient system of building out of regolith that we're imagining for both the moon and Mars. And so my statement and my position is, why wait until a Mars mission becomes a reality? Why not prototype this work now for people who need it most? And frankly, it's the only way to really know and understand the problem from an engineering perspective, is to do it now and to do it at scale and to figure out what it is that you need to resolve from a technology development perspective.
So in situ resource utilization on Earth, using the materials that are at hand here, if you have the right technology?
That's right, exactly.
So,
Yes.
if I can, I actually want to ask a question to the audience.
Please.
So, I think we're here together as a community because most of us, if not all of us, are convinced that Mars matters and that space matters. So, I mentioned in our innovation panel that I get asked all the time the question, why should we spend money on Mars when we already have so many problems here on Earth? Raise your hand if you've ever been asked that question.
All the time.
Okay, now, raise your hand if you have a really good answer to
I
that
have
question.
20.
Call Matt. Okay, that's the answer. So what I'm hoping has happened over the last couple of days is you have heard ideas over and over from a variety of perspectives that you can think of as tweet-length talking points that you can be rolling out at the dinner table, in the grocery store. You can be that guy at that party. That can be you. You are all members of this community, which means your voices to the larger world. I told you my dream is to never have to answer that question again. I want to activate you all as part of that solution.
Brilliant.
I like that. That's very nice.
It's one of the reasons I wear this hat. There are two others. One, as I always tell people, my boss, Bill Nye, our CEO at the Planetary Society, says he'll give me a Canadian $5 bill every time he sees me on camera with the hat, and it also makes sure no one knows I'm bald. So let's see if we can help to answer that question or address anything else you choose to. Come on up.
So my question is kind of where we can get the public inspired. So me growing up, I built models of spaceships, I watched Apollo 13, built models of fighter jets, became a fighter pilot, got a physics degree, all with the objective of being one of these first people to go to Mars. Like my entire life plan is based around this. The people that actually have the expertise, what inspired you? What gave you that inspiration, that motivation to become who you are? Amazing people that are actually going to get us there. And I think to get the public engaged, that inspiration, at least in my experience, is what really kind of gives you the goosebumps and gets you really into this and emotional about it.
It's a great question. Why don't we go right down the line, 30 seconds each. What got you started and eventually put you on this stage? Melodie?
Oh man, I don't think I could pick just one thing, but I would say that fantastic mentors who led the way and demonstrated that remarkable careers in space were possible.
Yeah, so I mean, this was mainly what my talk was about. I would say that the main thing that got me involved in space was a school project I did when I was in second grade on Sally Ride, and just seeing all she had done and inspired me to see all that I could do.
It's easy for me. I grew up in Florida in the 1980s as a kid. I stood in my backyard and I watched shuttle launches. I watched the Challenger explode from my backyard, which you would think would be a turnoff. But seeing the way our community reacted to that, because those NASA folks were members of our community. I'm not going to tell you how old I was because you all can add, but I was young, right? And that formative thing, if you can see it, you can be it, 100%.
Well, for me, I'm actually a child of the 60s. So that means I watched the original Star Trek from the very first episode. I also watched all the lunar landings. In high school, I ended up working for an observatory, and I decided, man, I'm going to go into astronomy. I went to the University of Iowa, and Astronomy 101 was taught by James Van Allen. And so I realized I could do astronomy from spacecraft. I didn't have to stay up all night. So by the time I started at Iowa and I stayed at Iowa, they were on their 54th spacecraft. So I got involved very early on in my career. But that's the trajectory I took. And it was those inspirational things all about space, whether it's science fiction or it's reality. And those are important.
I would say for me, the thing that I've always worked in technology. I started at Apple, worked on products there, and then I went to Magic Leap, worked on augmented reality. While I was working on augmented reality, I realized there's definitely positives to using augmented reality, but it also takes a lot of distraction and it kind of amplifies that. And so what worries me about some emerging technologies is there's potential negative pathways that I don't necessarily want to be a part of. But I think that going to Mars and going multiplanetary is by far the most positive use of emerging technologies, and it's going to inspire people, it's going to inspire the younger generation to want to become less YouTubers and more real engineers, real designers. I think that's super important. I think it's also going to lead to all this amazing innovation, and it's far going to outweigh the cost, I think, eventually. So I feel like being a part of that is really why I started this company, because for me, it's using my skill set and my application, which is a little different than probably most in the room, but trying to address and attract people that aren't necessarily background in space to get inspired and come along on the journey.
Florence?
Okay, for me, as a person who was raised in Afghanistan in a community that all the people think that science and technology is more for men, not women, it was kind of unacceptable for me, and I really wanted to change that idea. So first, when I heard about the Afghanistan National Robotics team, I really wanted to be part of that, because I thought that by being part of this team, I can really show the talent and the power of girls in technology and robotics. So I took the exam. It was like very hard exam. So among all the girls in my country, so after passing those 3 exams, I was an official member of Afghanistan National Robotics team, and after some time, I became the captain.
And you continue to provide that example, so.
For sure.
Yeah, so instead of the what, I'll kind of answer the why. The why space, space is a grand filter for technologies and for approaches for living in the future. Kind of gets you past a lot of those earth-based constraints of, well, I don't really want that in my backyard. You're able to imagine, utilizing what works, and it has to truly work too. It's, on Earth, we have a lot of flexibility in systems, and we can kind of take a lot of different nuances. But in space, it's a very hard filter. It either works or it doesn't. So it allows you to kind of open your mind and embrace new approaches and technologies.
When I was a toddler, my parents started bringing me to the Griffith Observatory in the Hollywood Hills above Los Angeles. And I know that when I sat there under that starry sky projected on a dome by that ancient projector, that was very likely the beginning for me. And from there into reading books about space, and then discovering Robert Heinlein and science fiction, and it's never stopped. And I'm another one of those original series guys, Jim, so yeah, live long and prosper. Lucas, probably our youngest presenter, I suspect. Lucas, you have a question, or do you want to add your thoughts?
I want to add my thoughts, and I want to say that a great way to help is definitely to be a mentor for people like me and help out and help educate the generation that will most likely be the ones traveling to Mars. And, yeah.
Great. Nice tie, Lucas. Thank you. Anyone else? I really want to hear some answers to Tiffany's questions, because I don't want to start my list of 20. Jennifer?
I had a couple things to say.
Talk right into there, too.
Well, I can talk really loud, so you got to be careful when you tell me to do that.
We can stand it.
2 things. Florence and Scarlett, you hit it on the head. You guys are inspirations, and please continue to push your narratives and your points to talk to kids, talk to adults, make them listen. And I think you've done that. But inspire children. Yeah. Absolutely. You guys are the future. 100%, all the time. Biologically, definitely. But the creativity, the inspiration, I mean, you guys inspire me. Truly. So I want to give a challenge to everybody here to continue the conversations we've had at this conference, at this summit, but also find organizations, find nonprofits, find organizations that these wonderful people have and have started, and find a way that you can contribute, and be open-minded. Take people from all industries, because we all have skills that contribute to space.
We hear your passion. Thank you. We have 3 minutes and 30 seconds before we bring J.R. Edwards, the president of Explore Mars, out here to close out the 2024 Humans to Mars. We've still got a little
90
time.
seconds, that's all I'll do here. Rich Phillips, I'm on the board of Explore Mars, and I was very fortunate. About 10, I think 11 years ago, we did a study called the Mars Generation Study. NASA was part of that and helped support us on that. And we learned something. We learned that if you're under 40 years old, you typically want to go to space because you want to collaborate and bring the world together and to protect our planet. And if you're over 40 years old, the number one reason cited to go to Mars and go beyond Earth is the economy, to beat the Russians and the Chinese, and really just US leadership in the world. And so I have pushed for many years that we need a bifurcated communication strategy. We really, in order to bring us all together, number one, as you said, there's a lot of Hollywood that says we're going to abandon and leave Earth for another planet because we've destroyed our planet. Young people want to know that our space program is not about abandoning Earth, but about protecting Earth. And I would support a Explore Mars, Save Earth campaign because that's really what it's about. So it's a little bit of knowledge there.
Thank you. Jim?
Yeah, this is really another really important point because many people don't realize the concept of what's happening climate-wise is because of space. One of the things that we report every year is the average temperature of the Earth. That means if you can imagine a grid and putting a thermometer everywhere on that grid, and then every 30 minutes you take a measurement and then average all that up and get the average temperature, then hey, that'd be great. But you can't do it over the poles, you can't do it in the ocean, but you can do it from spacecraft. And so even the concepts of how the Earth is warming started from space. And it started from our observations of Venus, because what's happened on Venus can happen on Earth. What's happening on Mars can happen on Earth. So comparative climatology that is done in the 70s and the 80s as we went to these planets, we brought that information here. When we had problems in the 80s with the ozone, everyone was going, what's happening with the ozone? How come it's going? How come it's dying off and the ultraviolet light is pouring in? What was happening was uncovered by scientists that were Venus scientists. What were they doing? They saw that chlorine was destroying ozone on Venus. That got them on the right trail to find the CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, so the first C is chlorine, is what's doing it. And now we have an international treaty to stop that. Those are the kind of things that we need to tell the public. They need to know how vital space is for this planet to survive.
And I will throw in a self-serving plug for the Planetary Society. Our founder, one of our founders, Carl Sagan, who did that pioneering comparative planetology work and showed us that what happened on Venus, let's not let that happen here. We'll make this our very last question or comment.
This is for everybody in the room. You guys see me here doing the photos and the content for Explore Mars. I'm a digital creator. I spend my time online, and my biggest thing is sharing stories of the industry, sharing your stories. So my thing to everyone is to say, share your stories. Everywhere you can, whether it's just a conversation. I know sometimes it's hard for us to talk about our journeys, and even especially if we don't feel we're totally there where we want to be. We have imposter syndrome. Everybody in this room has a story that will inspire somebody else. And however you can get that story out there, especially online, because that's where the younger generation is. If they're not in this room, they're online. So.
And tag us.
Yes,
tag Explore
us.
Mars when you do that.
And contact me, contact Wade, contact anybody if you have a story that you want to share on our platform, or if I can share on any other platform that I work with. I'd be happy to do that, because that's why I got into the industry. I don't have a technical space background, but my story is here to share everyone else's. So.
Great point. We have been storytellers and story listeners since we first started to gather around campfires and invented this thing called language. Any of you have anything you want to get in before we leave the stage to J.R. Edwards? We are already a little bit over time, but hey, there's nobody following us except J.R. Anyone? Last comments? Okay. We'll call it quits then and bring out J.R. Edwards, the president of Explore Mars. He wants us to stick around.
Really appreciate everything that you've done.
I love this. Is one of my favorite things to do every year, all year, and I will do it as long as they allow me. Thank you very much.